Joy to the world, the Lord is come. What a great song to start our service with this morning. Amen?
Amen.
It truly is what the whole Advent season is about. And I don't know about you, but I love the hanging of the green service. When we decorate the sanctuary together, it's supposed to feel like a family event. When you go home to your families, maybe right after Thanksgiving or right when December starts, you all start decorating the house together. And does it ever go just smoothly and perfectly? Does everything get hung exactly where you think? No, of course not. But you're with family, aren't you? And so that makes all the difference. So that's what this service is supposed to feel like. It's supposed to feel like our family here together decorating the sanctuary. And I love it. It just puts me in the Christmas mood. But for some people, as joyful as we sing about Christmas and as happy as the time as it is, for some people, Christmas is anything but joyful. In a Charlie Brown Christmas, Charlie Brown is having trouble getting into the Christmas spirit, noticing his friend Linus says to him, "Charlie Brown, you're the only person I know who can take a wonderful season like Christmas and turn it into a problem." Do you know anybody like that? The holiday season is full of Scrooges, individuals and groups alike. They take a wonderful season and turn it into a problem. Some people are more stressed out during Christmas than any other time of the year. For others, Christmas becomes a problem of greed and money and eventually debt. For non-Christians, for atheists, the problem with Christmas is all that talk about Jesus. They like all the other parts of it. If it wasn't for all the religious stuff, hey, it'd be a great holiday for them. And so, for some, Christmas comes and goes, but nothing ever really changes. Christ is born, but not in your heart. Something amazing and life-changing only becomes just another missed opportunity. However, turning Christmas into a problem, well, it isn't only a missed opportunity, it's actually doing the exact opposite of what the early believers did. The exact opposite. Rather than turning Christmas into a problem, the early believers turned a problem into Christmas. How did they do it? They did it not only by singing the Christmas songs, but by living the Christmas songs. And it all begins with that song we opened with this morning, Joy. Joy to the world, the Lord is come. Today, can I talk about the history of Christmas a little bit? Let's talk about the roots and the origin of Christmas. It all starts with joy. First, the early Christians found joy in the margins. The birth of Jesus disrupts a weary world with joy. The event of Christmas transformed the entire world because the early Christians truly lived a joyful life. It started in Luke chapter 2, verse 10. But the angel said to them, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people." The word that the angel uses for good news is that word you're so familiar with, gospel. And they said that it was good news for all people, not only the religious, not only the Jews, not only those who look and act just like us. It was great joy for all the people. I wonder how that sounded to those shepherds sitting out there listening. I wonder how that message sounded to them. It must have been especially joyful news to them because they were a marginalized and ostracized group in that culture. Nobody liked hanging out with shepherds. Everybody kind of looked down on shepherds. They lived way outside of town with the sheep. They were always wandering from place to place. So it's scandalous, really. Shameful, even. Undignified. The Messiah's birth. This is the thing they've been waiting for here. The Messiah's birth announced to a group of smelly, dirty outsiders. That's how God chooses to come to his people in the midst of poverty and powerlessness, born in a feeding trough amongst a group of shepherds. Yes, that's exactly how God came. I guess those angels weren't kidding. The joy of Jesus' birth is for everyone. You know, a problem arose within my family this past Thanksgiving. It wasn't a new problem. It was an old problem. The problem is that my dad always finds some outsider to invite to our family gatherings. I don't care what's going on. It doesn't matter what's happening. Funerals, holidays, birthdays, it doesn't matter. My father will find someone that we don't know and will invite them over to the house. A neighbor woman in a wheelchair found her way to our dinner table this past Thursday, and we all found ourselves wondering why she was there. It was awkward. Later, my mom scolded Dad for inviting her. This is my one chance with all my kids and blah, blah, blah. You know how moms are. Later, however, my father confessed to me that her family was gone for the day and, well, he couldn't just let her sit alone over there on Thanksgiving. And then he asked me, did I do the right thing? And all I could say was, yes. Yes, Dad, of course you did. And I recognized in that moment that my father has a better grasp on the spirit of Christmas than all the rest of us combined, because while all the rest of us saw our joy turn into a problem, he saw an opportunity to turn a problem into joy. At least for one lonely woman in a wheelchair on Thanksgiving. Finding joy in the margins. Well, that's how the early church turned a problem into Christmas. Second, the early church found joy in the making. After all, the Jewish people had been looking forward to this for a long time. But way back in Psalm 98, verses 4 through 6, it says this: "Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Burst into jubilant song with music. Make music to the Lord with the harp, and the sound of singing with trumpets and the blast of a ram's horn. Shout for joy before the Lord, the King." Now this psalm is a traditional poem about the joy of a coming king during his coronation. That's most likely where it was used when a new king would assume the throne. This is one of the psalms that they might read out at that service. And verses 7 through 8 even declares that not only the people, but all of nature is joyful about the king. The seas sing, the rivers clap their hands, the mountains sing together with joy. And then in verse 9, we hear why everyone is so happy, what all the hullabaloo is about. "Let them sing before the Lord, for he comes. For he comes to judge the earth." The reason all creation has come together to sing a song of joy is because this is no typical coronation. This isn't just a king. This is the king. In this moment, somehow and in some way, it's the Lord God himself who is coming down to earth as a king. Emmanuel, God with us, and his presence means true justice and true righteousness. That thought alone created within them such spontaneous joy that the only response was to just break out in song. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever been so excited that you just burst out into song like a living musical? You know, my 4-year-old Beckham does that when he's excited. When we go to the beach, for example, when we go to the beach, he gets so pumped, he bursts into the same song, to the beach, to the beach, to the beach, 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 and that's it. That's the whole song. That's the entire song, and he'll sing it the whole way there over and over again because he's so excited about what's coming. And that's the same spirit of Advent. That's the same spirit of Christmas. In the song Joy to the World, Christians sing Psalm 98. We get to sing Psalm 98. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart, don't skip over that, that's talking about you. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing. And then in Luke chapter 2, right here in Luke chapter 2, the psalm finds its fulfillment. Psalm 98 promises that when the heavenly King comes down to earth, joy will come with him. And then in Luke 2, the angels declare it, I bring you good news of great joy, good news for everyone. The King is come. Finding joy in the margins, finding joy in the making. That's how the early Christians turned a problem into Christmas. And lastly, the early Christians also found joy in the madness. The early church lived in the madness of the Roman Empire. Now, the whole climate was idolatrous. The food at the market had likely been used in some pagan ritual. The way people did business was idolatrous. The whole calendar was even based on their pagan religion. So when someone gave his or her life to Jesus, they had to start living differently, and yet they still had to live in the midst of this mad culture. The Christians would participate in the normal things of life. How else could they survive? But they would often transform the meaning of those things from a pagan or idolatrous practice into a Christian one. Have you noticed that it's been getting darker and darker the closer we get to December? That's not a recent phenomenon. Even way back then, December got darker earlier and earlier. The ancient world celebrated this in a pagan festival called winter solstice. And during winter solstice, this holiday, they would praise the nature gods for a new beginning. They would praise the harvest gods for bounty and food. So imagine this. Imagine that in a village during this time, celebrating winter solstice as they had done for generations, but suddenly there's a number of people, very recently, there's a number of people in that village who have given their lives to Christ. And they formed this new little church downtown. When winter solstice began, this new church would start saying things like, you know, this new beginning festival that we love so much. I love winter solstice. Happy winter solstice. We love it. But this festival that we love, it's not really a nature God who does it. It's not really one of these nature gods. It's the one God of the universe who sent Jesus into the world. That's the real new beginning. We have a new start because of Jesus, not one of these other gods. So really, really, we should be celebrating him during this time. You see, Jesus was actually born sometime in the spring or the summer. The reason we celebrate Jesus' birth right now is because its origins in the winter solstice, this festival of new beginnings. They said, hey, the real new beginning was Jesus' birth into the world. That was the real new beginning. That's what we should celebrate right now. And slowly but surely, they were so happy about Jesus, so excited about what Jesus had done in them, so excited about the new life they had received in Jesus that they took over the culture. And they transformed a traditional pagan holiday into a Christian one. And then by the time Emperor Constantine legalized Christianity, the church had already converted winter solstice into Christmas. That's the history of so Christmas. Some Christians have a real problem with this. So Christmas comes out of a pagan festival? Yes. But God transformed it. And by transforming it, God defeats Satan's hold on the world as well. And so isn't it the same type of thing that God does in your life? And in my life, He takes something far from Him, something pagan, and He transforms it into something new. And so if the history of Christmas seems odd to you, remember that it's only biblical to change something ungodly into something that honors God. In John chapter 17, Jesus is praying, and it's this deep prayer where Jesus is not only praying for His disciples, but Jesus looks into the future. And He's able to see all Christians that would ever be in the entire world. He was able to see you sitting in this room right now. And Jesus prays for you. And here's what Jesus prays. He prays that we would impact the world around us for Him. And He prays that we would transform our world in His name. And that's exactly what those early Christians did. They were so overcome with joy that they reinterpreted everything they were involved with, and they made it into something about Jesus. And we're called to do the same thing. It's what we're called to do as well. So it only makes perfect sense that the early Christians would take that pagan winter solstice festival, which is about new beginnings, and reinterpret it so that it now stood for humanity's new beginning in the birth of Jesus Christ. And they decided to call it Christmas. And that means Christ's Mass. The Latin word for Mass means, is complicated, but the Latin word for Mass means just as Christ was sent into our world to save us, we too are sent into the world. That's what Mass is. It literally means this: go, it is the sending. Isn't that interesting? Go, it is that. That's what Mass is, Christ's Mass. And go they did, rejoicing, finding joy in the madness. That's how. That's how the early Christians turned a problem into Christmas. Joy in the margins. Joy in the making. Joy in the madness. I love Christmas because it demonstrates that the love and joy of Jesus Christ won. That's what it demonstrates, that God has already won. Today is December 1st, the first day of Advent and the Christmas season, so you're off to a good start because you're here in church. You're off to a great December as it is just because you showed up here today. So this Christmas, why not let your enthusiasm for Jesus just take over your life? Just as the early Christians transformed winter solstice into a celebration of Jesus, you also, this December, transform your world, your community, your family, your work, your marriage, your business, your wallet, your politics. Transform everything into a celebration of worship to the God who brings new life. Instead of turning Christmas into a problem this December, let's turn our problems into Christmas. Would you pray with me?